Hey everybody, Derek Gilman here, and today we're going to discuss how to develop your connoisseur's palate. So what does that mean exactly, developing the connoisseur's palate? It's all about having some recognition for what you're consuming, and that begins with the aroma. The first thing we do, we go to a shop, we buy something new, we go to our dealer, the first time we get a new bag of something, or a new jar, first thing we do is we stick our nose into it, right? That's one of the great first steps for developing your palate, is taking that in, assessing what you're smelling, trying to perhaps relate it to some other flavor or aroma in your life. And once you begin to identify certain aromas, the sours, the fruits, the different types, over time, as your palate develops, you'll begin to understand how those aromas ultimately translate into the flavor, and how that aroma and flavor ultimately translates into the effects that you feel in your cannabis. Because the terpenes, those chemicals that are creating these aromas and flavors, actually have a tremendous effect on your experience with the cannabis. So before I spark this joint up, I'm going to take what's known as a dry hit. By doing that, it's your first time that you're tasting this cannabis. Tastes the same as what you smelled? I'll wager it's a little bit different. Now what I'm going to be doing is I spark this up, and as I take my inhale, I'm going to be paying attention to those flavors that I'm experiencing on the inhale, and I'm going to compare them to what I experience and the flavors that I get when I exhale. I actually let a little bit through my mouth and a little bit through my nose simultaneously as I exhaled. I want my taste buds to get some of this sensation, but flavor also is just so connected to what you're smelling. You can really get a good idea with what's going on in that cannabis. So on this particular one, which is actually an OG cross with Royal Kush, on the inhale, I was definitely getting this lavender, flavor, which is from the myrcene terpene, and on the exhale, I was actually getting a little more of a skunkiness to it, which is from some plant esters that are in there. And when you really start to pay attention to the nuance and the detail and the flavors that are going on, truly exceptional cannabis, it won't be singularly sweet or singularly sour or singularly this or that. It's going to have layers. It's going to have this multi-dimensionality to it. It's going to have high notes. It's going to have some deeper notes. It may just have some subtlety that begins to express itself only after you've been smoking this joint for a while. I'm getting some woody notes, perhaps some cedar notes out of this now. I'm still getting that myrcene on the inhale, still tasting that skunk on the exhale. Pay attention to the aftertaste. Does it linger in your mouth? Okay, what is that flavor that you're getting? Try and associate it with something in the real world that seems recognizable to you. There's a few different profiles that you want to pay attention to. Was it sweet, like a lemon or a lime or a pineapple? And if it's sour, was it, an astringent sour, or is it more of a oil can, jet fuel, fuel-y sort of sour? If it was an incense kind of flavor. Again, I've had some that is more like a Nag Champa. I've had others that are more like a frankincense. I've tasted all these flavors in cannabis, and the more cannabis you smoke, the more you're going to be able to recognize each of these individual flavors too. And again, if it was some exceptional cannabis, that room's not just going to smell smoky. You're going to actually smell, maybe it's a pine flavor that you smell in the air. You should smell something very similar to what you experienced. What kind of sensation do you have? Does it tickle your nose? What's that mouth feel like? Is it kind of a dry mouth feel? Is it silky and smooth? What's the lung feel like? Is it just nice and kind of sits in there comforting? Or is it that expando lung feel? You take in that hit and it just wants to burst back out. All of these things play a role in developing your connoisseur's palate. It begins with that initial experience, with that nug, the first time putting your nose into it, and it just goes all the way through with paying attention to each of these steps along the way. I hope you learned something today. I'm Derek Gilman. Until next time.